Shahkarami. I'm a CPA and advisor, and I'm joined here with EQ architect Mike Dulcio. We're here tonight to talk about the fact that you can't solve an internal hangover with an external spreadsheet. A lot of people think the next revenue goal, the next deal, the next client, the next promotion, or the next big financial milestone will finally make them feel secure and financially independent. But unfortunately, if the internal architecture is weak, more success often creates more pressure and more stress. The question normally isn't, can you build more wealth? Can you build success? The real deep question is, can you carry it? Do you have the capacity to receive it without losing yourself or losing it along the way? So, welcome. I'm here to talk more about the finance and strategic business side of things. And Mike brings an unprecedented amount of knowledge and experience in coaching, effective communication, internal architecture, and emotional intelligence. So, Mike, I know you have a lot to talk about. Why don't you start it off with how leaders, business leaders, some of the common misconceptions of business leaders as it relates to building, growing wealth, and creating something sustainable for themselves?
Okay, very good, very good. I'm glad to be on this with you, Sean. I'm looking forward to what's to come. I know you have a lot of nuggets and gems to share when it comes to capital and sharing financial intelligence and building and sustaining it, not just having it, but sustaining it as well. And I know in your world, in this world, anybody can make as much money as they want, but we know what's really important is how much do you keep, and beyond that, what do you do with the things that you keep? So, yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, to be on here again. Like Sean said, I am an emotional intelligence mastery coach. I'm an EQ architect, rather, and we're going to talk about the uh, the nervous system, the emotional side to capital, so to say. So to answer your question, a lot of people come in and with regard to business with great ideas, lofty ideas, but a common mistake that I find is not understanding what it takes to not only just establish the foundation, but to build the infrastructure, obviously the hardware, but also the software, the emotional infrastructure that is going to help sustain business, that will keep the owner or the partners from over functioning, burning out, doing too much, or even micromanaging. Obviously, there's a lot of heavy work that goes into starting a business or sustaining a business, or even inheriting a business and sustaining it. But it's it's very healthy and necessary for us to understand the different kinds of strategy planning systems and beliefs that are going into maintaining a strong business structure. And in today's segment, I'm going to speak on the hidden role of emotional intelligence in building wealth and capital. And I may bring up some challenging points for our audience, for our viewers. I know, Sean, you're like me. We welcome the conversation. We welcome the questions and the challenges as well. Like
Yeah,
one of the things is, oh, go ahead, brother.
I do want to say we are all green lights across 5 social platforms right now. So we are successfully streaming on Facebook, Substack, LinkedIn, and I'm checking the YouTube just right now to make sure. Um, and the reason I bring that up is this is meant to be interactive. So uh, our good friend from Lawnscapes, Walter, has already left a comment. It doesn't matter what social profile or what social platform you're streaming from. We're able to see all your chats and ask questions, drop notes, and as Mike and I are speaking, we will. I will be moderating and answering those questions in the chat.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah. So one of the things I would love to challenge something for a moment. It's the belief that most people think that wealth is primarily and only built through strategies, investments, tax planning, sales, systems, leveraging opportunities and partners. And they're not necessarily wrong. However, it's not the only thing. I like here's the question that I would ask the people. Why is it that intelligent, educated, high earning, high capacity people who have developed great business, sustainable business, and gained great capital, but they still tend to sabotage growth? They destroy partnerships, they overspend emotionally, they burn out their families or build businesses that own them instead of them owning their businesses. And
Choose me, Mike. I can.
go for it.
So I can only say this because I lived this. This is lived experience from me personally, and also through third party observation, interviewing highly successful people, working alongside highly successful people in very competitive landscapes, uh, much of the time with millions, if not billions of dollars at stake and on the line. And it's something that you and I actually talked about earlier today. When I meet with people, most people want and ask, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
And there are key principles, and then there are tactics and strategies. But as you and I both know, tactics only get you so far. And that's the lowest level of building something, is the tactical, what you do.
Absolutely, the implementation.
The the issue is, what most people want is a feeling, an emotion. They're looking for some type of feeling or emotion. They want to be financially free. They want to be financially independent. They want to be wealthy, right? You cannot solve a being problem by doing your way into it.
Right, right.
So, to become wealthy, you have to already be someone who can have the capacity to become what you want. So it's be, do, have. And to break that down a little bit more practically so it doesn't sound woo woo, the only way to change your doings is to change your intentions. And the only way to change your intentions, from what I've found, lived through, is to change your beliefs. Behaviors, your doings, your
Mm-hmm.
behaviors are an outflow from your beliefs. And so what happens is, many of us, whether it's through whatever pathway that life gets to us, we are
Right.
conditioned to believe things that aren't always true. And some of them sound really good. You have to work hard to make a lot of money. That's a false belief. I know a lot of people who don't work hard and make a lot of money, more money than I do.
Yeah.
And where I have lived experience, and why I believe my path took a little bit longer, was because I also had conflicting inner beliefs. I had one parent who was good at making money, and you can argue some of the morality of how that one parent made money. And I had another parent who taught me that if you're rich, it must mean that you're a really bad person and you backstabbed your way all the way to the top. So I grew up with an internal dialogue of some good beliefs about money, but also some very, very false beliefs about money. And some of the influences of that combined, I had a very strong, what's called, inner conflict to overcome in my belief set about money.
I understand.
And so the only way that I was able to change and transform myself financially to become more abundant, to become more wealthy, and I still have a ways to go, was to work really hard on changing those beliefs. Because otherwise, it's just behavior modification. And it's just like when I lost a lot of weight in the past through sheer willpower, it wasn't sustainable actual change. It was short term behavior modification. What happens over time? You fall back into the same patterns and you lose the progress that you made on in the weight loss. Same as in the gym. It's just for whatever reason, as people, it's easier for people to wrap their hands around, weight loss or getting fit, getting strong, going to the gym. Money is a little bit of a different story for most people.
Okay, okay. I love the fact that you brought in the be do have. And you're exactly right. It fits perfectly into this conversation, simply because it bridges identity, our emotional intelligence, and wealth creation, which is what you're a part of. And yeah, like you said, most people have it backwards. Most people live it backwards. They think have, do, be. If I have more money, then I'll do better. And if I'm doing better, then I'll become confident, calm, abundant, disciplined, and all this other stuff. And it's so false. And so you sharing the importance of be doing and having, like being able to work on embodying the person who has the capability to not only create wealth, attract wealth, but having the emotional infrastructure to focus on who you're becoming, so that we can maintain wealth. And being, like you said, is exactly the foundation, because before any before any revenue, before strategy, before scaling, before investing, before all of that, it's it matters who we're being emotionally. It matters who we're developing and becoming, because wealth is often an identity and a stewardship game before it's a numbers game. Um, and there's so many things that I've learned from my mentor, um, and learning to master not only just knowing but embodying the concept of be, do, have. Like, a question that I would ask for the audience is, who are you becoming under pressure? Right? When pressure arises, do you get reactive? Do you become fearful? Are you impatient? Are you avoidant? Are you approval driven? I've been those things. I've had to face them and deal with them and grow, excuse me, and grow from them. Grow into becoming, instead of reactive, becoming more regulated. Um, so much so it's not only a skill that's been gained and that's been established. It's a heavy part of my doing and my teaching as well. Instead of being fearful under pressure, growing to become more decisive. I'm not even saying necessarily fearing less, but being able to make decisions while facing fear is a healthy habit that one can attribute to developing. And dealing with impatience. I know we think the opposite. Okay, so now I got to learn to be patient. I would say true, but let's slow down, because I know a lot of people fear the thought of being patient. What if it's so much more learning to become emotionally disciplined? What if it's okay? Yeah, I know I got to learn to do patience. So do I got to go stand in the longest line? Well, let's look underneath that. What does it look like to be emotionally disciplined? To be able to recognize I'm in a situation that might be taking longer than I expected it to be, and I could focus on the length, the longevity of that time that I have, or I could choose to occupy my focus elsewhere in something that would help me pass the time quicker, whether it's music, reading, or whatever the case is. and dealing with some kind of avoidant behaviors or approval driven. These are from our people who are maybe pacifists or people pleasers or whatever the case is. I would encourage learning to become calm in uncertainty, because with people pleasing, it really thrives on overthinking or trying to think for the other person. Because in a state of panic, we want to perform so that we can be right or do right. What if we learn to try to stay calm in the moment so that we can get clarity? What if we try to focus on the things that we need in the moment to help us balance who we are in the moment so that it will have a positive effect on the way that we make our decisions. So, like you said, Sean, when we talk about being, to be is the foundation of emotional intelligence territory,
Hmm.
self-awareness, mindset, leadership identity, communication posture. I think all of these things, I think when I think of that, it's before before you could build financial capital, you must build emotional capital.
Hmm. Hmm.
You can't expect to try to hit one goal because you can build that if you want to, but if you don't have the emotional capital to deal with the things that comes with, let's say higher taxes or family coming after you because you hit a lick, you're the meal ticket. Everybody knows it's you coming. If you don't have the emotional resolve to deal with these very real things, people calling you late at night asking for favors, friends or cousins or people you haven't seen in decades, all of a sudden showing up and saying, "Hey, you remember that favor you owe me?" If you don't have the emotional capital or understanding and how to deal with that in an appropriate way, it can drive anyone crazy, and they become, especially if they don't have the education to understand how to utilize the funds
Mm.
and understanding where it could go. A lot of people still think having their money in a savings account in the bank is a good thing, and they don't understand how that money is actually depreciating and how you're actually losing money, which is where I think we'd go more into your world with that and helping people to become smarter investors or just having a deeper awareness on how capital works or how we can have our capital to work for us, if that makes sense.
Well, it's interesting you bring it up. And over time, I want to make sure the audience knows this is episode one. We're starting here for a specific purpose. Because if you've been following Mike or myself for any length of time, you might be thinking, hey, this is good stuff, but this is what you say all the time. And that's true. But I think, at least speaking for myself, I talk about this stuff so much because it's the basics, it's the fundamentals. And any professional who is great, you may not see them, but they are always practicing day in and day out the fundamentals of their craft.
Absolutely.
And so when we talk about business and wealth, they are correlated, but they don't necessarily always have to be connected. You can build great wealth without ever owning or having your own business. It is possible. And some people, I think, are gravitate more towards that. It just takes some intentionality and learning some basic fundamental principles of wealth building and consistency over time. Same for a business owner. I would say, I think one of the reasons why people gravitate towards being an entrepreneur and owning a business is because owning a business can accelerate it. Not all the time, not if you are emotionally dysregulated, probably, but being a business
Uh,
owner can accelerate it. So for me, I would say the first step is creating the engine. Whatever the engine is for you, call it what you want, but it's earnings power. That is your engine. That's step one. Is
And
creating
can,
some.
and can you explain what to the average person who doesn't necessarily understand what earnings power means? Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, and so and I want to be very direct that it doesn't have to be a lot. Wealth building isn't how much you make, it's how much you keep. And we've kind of talked about this before, Mike. I've run into people who make a lot of money and are not very good at keeping it. And I've met people who make around poverty level income and find a way to keep all of it and save. But earnings power is your ability to either go get a job as a W-2 employee and earn a salary or hourly wage and make money that way, or earnings power could be how much revenue your business and or investments can generate. That's your earnings.
Okay. Okay. So all right, got you. So earning power means whatever it is that's helping you to make money or get money, whether it's a job, a W-2, a 1099 independent contractor, or um, some other measure or proclivity for you to get money is what you would consider earning power.
Correct. And we can even talk about, okay, how do we increase our earnings power? Skills, new skills,
Mm-hmm.
scaling. If you're a business owner, scaling the business can increase your earnings power. An advanced degree. I think some of the challenges in with today is with the advancement of AI, with technology, with global competitiveness. Like there are other countries who are better than the United States, most notably in STEM, so science and mathematics and technology. So the global workforce, other countries have caught up. The traditional wisdom was, at one point in time, a high school degree was a big deal, right? Like graduating
Mm-hmm.
high school meant something more than it means today. And then there was a point in time where a bachelor's degree meant that you were nearly guaranteed to have a lot of earnings power. And now today, with student debt and, like I said, the competitiveness of the globe, AI, the speed, access, and ease, efficiency of accessing intelligence and information. Even a master's degree and a PhD, advanced degrees, don't give the same earnings power that they once did.
Right. Okay. Okay. And I'll even say to that, which is very true. Well, also in the day and age where it's almost the quickest and easiest time to actually start to garner wealth because of the implementation of um, AI or the access to information that we have with the internet. Um, Alongside schooling and degrees and all of that stuff, I mean, every area has its own play in it, but it's so easy right now to. I think the market is so wide open to create your own earning power right now based on your creativity, your tenacity, your ambition, your thoughts, your clarity in the future, and the future that you want to create for yourself. I think it is wide open. But again, it's one thing to make it, like you said, but it's another thing to maintain it or to keep it. And in lieu of what we're speaking of, with unregulated leaders or people in general, who are generally unregulated, these are the people that make the most expensive decisions. When people aren't emotionally sound or we live in the reaction phase or the panicking phase, these are the how many people in very real life? How many people have a shopping addiction, um, um,
A
or
lot.
food addiction, or a spending addiction as a form of regulation,
Mhm.
right? And that's where I would ask, and you look like you have something you want to share. Like, are you operating as a person, as someone watching this right now? Are you operating from vision, or are you operating from your nervous system building a capacity for survival?
Right. And from a practical financial perspective, once you have the engine, which I would say most people, like you said, have the engine. Most people have a job or have some revenue stream coming in. Not all, but most. The next piece is where it can become easier to fall into traps that lead to emotional dysregulation, because when you start making money, the first thing that happens, typically where there's intention, there's disruption, is you have more problems. More money, more problems, right?
That's what they say.
And so what I've found, and what research actually suggests, and I'm interested to hear your perspective on how it relates to emotional intelligence, is our human minds have to be trained to get outside of linear thinking. And what do I mean by that? Linear thinking.
Right.
How do we go from linear to dynamic, or linear to exponential? Because you start to make money, and let's just say it's a normal person who was taught, hey, you save at least 10 to 20% of your income. You save it. And you mentioned, hey, how a lot of people don't even understand how when you put money in a bank account, you just leave it there, you're actually losing money over time. It's true. The rate of inflation is above and beyond what you're going to get from a checking account in terms of interest, right? So, but we also have goals and we want to live our life. So a lot of people will be like, okay, I have this paycheck, I have this income stream, I have this revenue, I have this business, whatever it may be, and I'm going to save whatever, $1,000 a month for 3 years so that I have $36,000 set aside as an emergency fund. And then I'm going to save for the wedding ring. And then I'm going to start putting into my 401k. The amount that's lost to linear thinking, and I run into it every day. Hey, Sean, I need to reschedule our meeting because we need to redo our budget and we need to save some more for emergencies before we can meet. Dynamic thinking is more like, hey, I have X amount coming in. I'm going to set aside this dollar amount. And out of this dollar amount, I'm going to put 200 in my emergency fund. I'm going to put 400 in my 401k. I'm going to put
Mhm.
$100 to the down payment on the house or the car I want. I'm going to put $200 down on inside of a whatever fund that gets me a better return, whatever investment gets me a better
Yeah,
return,
like a CD account or a Roth IRA or something like that,
or just a mutual fund, or whatever the
or a
case may
mutual fund.
be for my midterm goals. That that small tweak from linear to dynamic and allocating across different buckets or different timelines makes all the difference in the world. Because if you were to say, hey, I'm going to save $1,000 a month and I'm going to put it all to my emergency fund, and it's going to take me 3 years to save $36,000, you've just lost out on 3 years of compounding.
Got you, got you. All right, so yeah, so there's definitely an emotional intelligence perspective in that. And my role, I guess we'd call it the difference between a closed mind and an open mind. The closed mind being linear, thinking that, hey, this is how I understand it, this is my way, and this is the only way. And that kind of supports. It's self awareness, which coincides with what I call financial accuracy. There are some people who think they're underpaid, some people who think they're underpositioned, some people are underconfident, and some are overcompensating. And the question that I ask is, what story are you operating from? What story am I operating from? Is it from scarcity, from people pleasing, from perfectionism, from imposter syndrome? So to go back to what you, and I like the terms that you use, linear thinking and dynamic thinking. Linear, the this is the closed-minded or the small-minded, and I'll say small-minded, which we were all victims of, or we've all experienced. That's this the simple fact that I don't know that what I don't know, and I'm not privy to certain information. And because this is the only lane that I know, because this is how I grew up, or this is how I came to understand things, or this is my level of elevation, and I think I'm winning. So, for the person that is unwilling to become a dynamic thinker, or to open their mind, they might just see the one lane and think, "Oh snap! In 3 years, 36,000 sounds like a lot in 3 years." And I think for a person like that, the first things first, there would have to be an awareness of understanding that one, yes, that's growth, but it's a very, very slow paced growth. What if there was another way to have that kind of growth just expedited? And I think that would lean in towards the dynamic thinking or the open mind. If in being able to ask questions, or let's go to scarcity versus abundance thinking. Scarcity comes from the fear-based kind of thinking. So this is all I have, this is all I had, this so I'm going to take these steps to protect all that I have. Well, abundance style of thinking doesn't necessarily come from a fear-based atmosphere. It's more prudent, or more faith-based, or more open, because they're not looking at what happened in the past, but they're looking on how to create new opportunities from the opportunities that they have now, and to what you would call dynamic thinking. And I think the open-minded person or the dynamic thinker would, or should be, curious as to find out, are there ways for me to expedite this process outside of this one lane of $1,000 a month? Are there different ways for me to make my money grow? Are there different ways to make my money grow outside of me? Yes, if I'm starting with just $1,000, I can control the $1,000 every time that I'm that I'm putting in, or I can give these $1,000 life and split these up into different asset building machines or compounding machines, to where they compound or they multiply themselves. So I think the difference between a linear thinker and a dynamic thinker. It starts with a level of self awareness. It starts with being able to understand, how do I view money, and what do I believe are are the capabilities of this money. Do I believe I have to continue to work for it? Do I believe that it can work for me? Right? So I think it starts there. So to answer your question from an emotional intelligence point of view, that's where I start. I'd start with self awareness, and having the person or persons or couples or whoever's in it, I'd have them first gauge their personal story with money.
Yep.
and how they view it, and allowing them to be open to the different avenues of how money can actually serve them.
And a couple things there. I always say that linear behaviors will never result in exponential increase.
Okay.
And what that means is it's not a judgment, but if you want to continue in a linear style of thought, you're going to only get linear results. 1 + 1 = 2. 2 + 1
So
=
small
3.
thinking produces small results.
Yeah, I don't want to make I don't want to make it a like a personal judgment call. It's just a financial principle that you know compounding, as Einstein said, is the eighth wonder of the world. And I think the way that you put it, you know, should really help unlock a lot of people, at least in my audience, who I know are believers, because some of the pushback I get online when I talk about abundance and mindset and using money as a tool is scriptures out of context. You know,
Oh, I love
based
and I love to
and
plug in the invite just to have those kind of conversations as well.
but you said something that I want to ask a question, just rhetorical question of if you're working for money, are you closer to money being your master or not, as compared to if your money is working for you, are you now the master of money and it's not mastering you?
Okay, so is that a rhetorical question, or you want me to
Yeah,
answer
that's
that?
just a rhetorical question about how, like, I think there's a common misconception about just what money is and using money as a tool
So
apart.
money is either using you or you're using it.
Correct.
Okay,
And I
I
think
agree.
I think when we're using money, it's actually a signal that it's not our master. When money's working for us, it's it's evidence that we are in control of it and it is not in control of us.
Okay, so if I was to and I want to expound a little bit on onto what you just shared. I think it's super cool. I love having these kind of discussions. And I love how my mentor puts it. Well, the question that you asked, even though it was rhetorical, if you're working for money, well, if you're working for money, that already implies a master. If you're doing something for something, that already creates or presupposes a certain position. But for I was once a victim of such. And there are many different areas in our lives where we're always growing and developing and moving above and beyond. But I could hear the arguments, the pitchforks coming out and say, "How dare you say this?" Well, the simple answer is, well, there are situations out there where people can't the unless you have if you're not able to pay the bill, then the lights are going off. And if we're losing a form of self control or peace of mind because we don't know what to do because the lights are going off and we have to go and do something extra or do something more to keep the lights on. That sounds like a lack of funds creating a certain level of behavior that's causing you to overexert yourself to fulfill a purpose. If you are, I think I believe it is a tool. I believe it is a tool that's meant to be used in a variety of different ways that are healthy. But I do believe that if that tool is misused, that tool also has the power. That tool also has the power to use us. as much as it wants to, and it will, because money will tell you when to sleep, when to wake up. Money will tell you what to wear and what you cannot wear. Money will tell you where you can go and where you cannot go. Money might tell you if you're sleeping hot tonight or if you're going to sleep under the covers tonight, depending on what you do with it. Money, you might want to be able to do something that you so desire to do, but if your master says nope, you can't do it, then you can't do it. No judgment. Been there, understand it. But I think it's a different perspective and a different frame in how we view it. And however, that's not to say that everybody do these things or react these ways. There are ways to definitely monetize or scale or downsize or whatever the case is to make things work and to be content in all circumstances, of course. However, I think there are principles and tools and skills in place that will open our eyes to the tools that we can capture and use towards our benefit. I think I think wealth intelligence coincides with relational intelligence, and when those two get together, we have capital expansion. And I think wealth does not grow alone. Wealth rarely grows alone. Capital moves through streams or banks, terms that are synonymous with water, moving water. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But capital moves through partnerships, it moves through relationships, it moves through teams, referrals, trust, proximity, influence. So low EQ destroys opportunities. It might actually destroy some relationships, but high EQ, high emotional intelligence, or emotional regulation and understanding, I think that level of EQ creates ecosystems.
Mm.
And when we have an ecosystem of people around us, no matter where we are, um, hey, let's use a family or a community dynamic. This family focuses on educating children. This family focuses on, they're great with babysitting children so they could go out on date nights. This family focuses on building mechanical engineer. There's so many different
Mhm.
facets in the ecosystem that we can utilize and work together with. And I think that money does the same thing. So, and when we have an ecosystem, that alone regulates our emotional system because we don't have to do everything ourselves. We can now delegate the responsibilities that would help us to, I don't know, be freer to make money faster or live our lives better. I don't know. My take.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because, one of the things that I wanted to touch on tonight, especially for business owners and those who are managing people, leaders in any function, is many of us are still caught up in silos. You have your finance department over here or your finance guy over there. You have your CPA, which a lot of business owners think all CPAs just think CPAs are like a magic bullet, which we're not. Too many people are relying on their CPA to be their fractional CFO, their tax guy, their bookkeeper, their financial forecaster. Um, then you have a marketing guy or marketing department. You got sales, and what happens is you have all these little pieces spread out everywhere, and if there's no structure to support the silos, if there's no emotional intelligence to be able to delegate your time and energy across all the different functions responsibly, that's where bottlenecks start to happen. Most of
Yep.
most of the best business owners I've ever met were the ones who became aware that their excuses were just excuses, that it was actually them, they were the bottleneck, and they figured out how to remove themselves as the bottleneck.
Absolutely.
And that kind of gets into the second principle of finance and capital. But before I even get there, one of the things that I wanted to touch on as removing the bottleneck comes an awareness that there are things that are more valuable than money or capital. So there's emotional capital, there's relational capital, there's spiritual capital. And you mentioned how we use these financial terms for things like banks and currency, and it's like water, right? Well, we also pay things every single day that are more valuable than money. We pay attention to things that are distractions.
Mm-hmm.
We give our focus and our energy to things that aren't moving the needle.
Right.
We give our time to things that are wasteful. And myself included, not claiming to be perfect here, but my point is the most successful business owners or financial gurus, entrepreneurs, or just, entrepreneurs, people who are leaders within a business, maybe they're an employee. The most successful people have found ways to delegate and scale within their sphere of influence through other forms of capital, mainly, leadership capital, or relational capital, emotional capital, to where they're getting their time back, because your time and
Absolutely.
energy is more valuable than your dollar bills. The people who get stuck that I've met are those who don't understand the relative value of time and energy versus money, and they're prioritizing money too high versus time and energy.
I no, I definitely I agree a lot to what you said. There's this misalignment in priorities. So I could definitely see how it could be misconstrued as money is king above all, and until money is lifted, the other things are lost. You're right. People pay attention. People spend time and pour their attention and intention and energy into a lot of distracting things, and which not only depletes money, but it also restricts or blocks it from being able to come in too. And being able to understand or take your net worth seriously, I think it correlates with your network and the people that we surround ourselves around. And you just mentioned a certain category of people, group of people, whether it's entrepreneurs, business leaders, financial gurus, or whatever the case is, people that live a life that they would deem successful, have certain habits and principles that they do maintain and take very seriously. And that is where they put their time, how they spend their time and energy, and what they pour that into. Because obviously, we believe what you what you pour into is what's going to feed you right back. Your network is not simply built by who you know alone. It's also built by people who feel safe, respected, challenged, and people who are elevated around you. And I feel like in order to increase our net worth, our network has a lot to do with it, because birds of a feather flock together, right? And who are the people that we are allowing within our own circles, within our inner circles, who has influence over the way we think or we decide or how we act. That's something that we can take control over, garnering an awareness of what we allow to come around us. Anybody that says like there's the age old tact trick that I learned from my mentor, and I've seen it done a lot of different places, and it's it's talking about which one's greater, time or money, time or money. Um, and money's greater. Money's greater. I said, okay, cool. Let's say you are going to get access to, let's say, $3.7 million, clean, pre-tax, untouched, nothing illegal. It is all yours, but it's one contingency. As soon as you say yes to receiving it and you receive it, you have 24 hours to live.
Mm.
Now you tell me which one has greater value, time or money. Are you
Yeah.
going to take that 3.7 million and live 24 hours? Or are you going to opt otherwise? And that really puts into perspective how valuable of a commodity time really is. And how serious we should take it, or how mindful we can be, or I can be, or I ought to be with the time that I have in front of me. So yeah, you're right. Being able to be around people, be the person, and if you are the person, if I am the person, then the responsibility is on me to keep my eyes open for the people around me, or who I decide I want to be around. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. Now, big fish, small pond, that's ego. That's old news. That's old news. I always want to be learning, growing. Proximity is so huge. Proximity is my personal eighth wonder of the world. Being able to be in rooms with with people who consider 60, 70, 80,000 a month as lightweight. Oh, that's a bad month. That's the kind of rooms I want to be in. And and continue to gain access to through leveraging relationships and building and all of that stuff. And I think these things matter on a micro level, but I think it's even more impactful on a macro level. And taking our time to pay attention to the conversations that we're listening to, what we're giving our attention to, and the people that we're allowing around us, and the people that we're choosing to be around as well. I think that's huge. So, um, I, I know we're probably wrapping up shortly, but a practical insight I like to give to those who are with us, those who are listening in or catching the replay, whatever the case is it doesn't have to be this huge, grandiose beginning. Just sit, just taking time to sit down with an executive financial strategist like yourself, like a Sean Shahkarami, and asking questions. Hey, I just started a job. This is how much I'm making. I think I have a 401k. Can I do anything with that? Those little moments of self awareness, those little moments of awareness, find out who you can connect to, who you can reach out to. Even on this call, this dude right here has an immense amount of knowledge and wisdom when it comes to capital and financial literacy and diversifying your funds and asset creations and all of this stuff and all these fancy. For me, they fancy. I'm not in the financial world. I'm in the EQ world. But in English, this guy has a great way of making these words transliterate into English and making it basic and simple and easy to understand, so that you can not only start to take care of yourself, but even take care of those you love,
Mm.
or creating opportunities for those you love. So I encourage um, anyone who is looking to take their finances seriously, or want to have a more proactive approach in it. Look out, look out, like keep your eyes open. If you're listening to this chat, that means you need to tap in with us. Just send a message or whatever the case is. Just ask questions and find out why.
Mhm.
Ask questions and find out why. Not only financially, but see how it also replicates emotionally as well. But that's one practical step I think we can take in order to scale our lives,
Yep.
because that's a business in and of itself too. But conversation for another day. Sean, I'll give it to you, brother.
No, I was going to say I appreciate that, and likewise, I think from a practical perspective, the proximity, the presence of being around like-minded people, and frankly, people who are a level or two above you. You probably don't want to go too far up, right? Like if someone's on level 10 and you're in level 1, the lessons that they're going to teach you're not going to be ready for, right? And I fell into that trap a few years back, uh, trying to reach higher but skipping steps, and especially trying to outsmart the foundation. And it's why I stick so much to just the foundational aspects, especially this evening, because there are levels. Just like in EQ, there are levels. There's levels of financial discipline, levels of financial principles, but it's just so much better and wiser to always build a strong foundation. And so I want to end with some practical tips that I've learned along the way in terms of business, wealth accumulation. Um, if you're a business owner, there are 3 different activities. There's what I call level 1 activity, which is direct revenue generating activity. So most of the time, what that looks like is picking up the phone and calling someone who you think is interested in your business and using high emotional intelligence, not just pitching them, but entering into a conversation, inviting them in to a conversation about the value that you can present to them. So that would be like level 1. Then there's level 2, which is revenue influencing activity. So that would be things like lead magnets, webinars, drip campaigns, blogs, newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not one for one direct revenue, but it influences revenue. And then there is level 3, which is basically brand awareness. And I think what happens a lot of times to new business owners is they focus so much on awareness, like brand awareness. So that would be like, I used to work for a really big company named Grant Thornton, and they sponsored the players golf tournament at TPC Sawgrass, right? And so when you watch the golf tournament, you'd see their logo everywhere. Well, that's brand awareness, right? And I think a lot of new entrepreneurs, a lot of new business owners end up spending too much of their time and energy on fonts and logos and colors and just posting blindly online for brand awareness before they've ever built the brand. So I wanted
that's backward.
So I wanted to give a little bit of practical building business advice. Stick to that level 1, master it, and as you say, delegate and scale that, and then you move into level 2 and level 3. And the reason I bring that up right now is because that principle of doing the first things first in the right order, in the right sequence of events, is exactly the same principle behind wealth accumulation, behind emotional intelligence, and the need of asking the right questions to the right people who don't just know the theory, but actually have the lived experience of going through it and coming out the other end successful.
Right.
And so all that for me to say is this stuff is very simple. Simple doesn't always mean easy. One of my good mentors said there's a gap between simple and easy. So if you're struggling with stuff like this, ask for help.
That's a great that that's it. That's a great foundation to begin with. On my end, the question is not just how do I make more money. The deeper side of that question is how, not how, but who must I become? Who must I become emotionally to steward greater capital responsibility? And because, and that's important because money grows in the hands of people who can regulate pressure, in the hands of the people who can communicate clearly, the people who can lead relationally and think long term. These are the kind of people that know how to multiply value. And that's emotional intelligence. That's emotional intelligence, and it's also wealth architecture. So, not just asking, how can I make more money, but who must I become? Who must I become to be able to not only have it, but utilize it and multiply it? And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing on my end with EQ. Listen, if there's questions that you have or commentary that you have, I'm definitely here for it. Your income may grow faster than your identity, but trust me, that's what self sabotage comes in. So you want your identity to move with or even faster than your income, so that it's always chasing greatness. And once emotional clarity and leadership infrastructure are established, and all of that stuff is becoming more and more established and firm, financial strategy dramatically becomes more effective, which is why I'm excited for Sean here to unpack the math, systems, and capital strategies and all that side of this conversation. Understand the two do work well and they work best when they work hand in hand with each other. Um, this is a great time, man. This is a great time, great ride. Sean, what do you think, bro?
No, I agree. And I think, next week, so we'll be doing these weekly. Um, Next week is, of course, a holiday, so we might pre-record that one so that everyone can um, have that time with their families, which is both really important to both me and Mike, right? And so maybe the best way to land this plane here is neither of us, don't mistake this, neither of us are saying you need to hustle or grind more.
No.
We're actually saying the opposite. In fact, one of the things that I've realized on my journey is a famous person who is, I don't know him intimately. I actually did have the pleasure of meeting him once, which was awesome, is Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins, one of his famous lines is, for change to happen, it requires massive action. And I interpreted that incorrectly because what I believe massive action was hustle, grind, massive action, massive action. But actually, rest is taking action. The emotional disciplines is taking action, taking time away so that you can regenerate and recoup and rest. That is action. And so, one of the things, the last piece of kind of practical advice is I always try to help people define the beginning from the end. So when someone says, I want to be financially successful or financially free, what that really means is they want some type of options and flexibility in their life. But that means something different to everybody.
Yep.
So, Mike, financial freedom might be I need to feel the feeling of what it means to make $100,000 a month on repeat. And I want my net worth to be $30 million. There's another person out there who says, I'm not going to feel financially free until I have $100 million. And there are people out there who can feel financially free with $500,000 or $200,000. So I always ask people, before you like start the journey, tell me the vision.
Right.
And when is enough enough? Because if you don't define what success is for you, what enough is for you, you will never stop.
Having a goal point, a destination point it's a very, very important measuring tool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and clarity is a huge part of that. I'm glad you said that. Listen, man, capital is attracted to clarity, stewardship, trust, and value creation. And
Absolutely.
and I believe that's what Sean is here to share on. That's what I'm here to share on as well. And until next time, listen, these are coming. We're dropping these weekly. We're looking forward to your feedback, your insight, your comments, your questions, whatever the case is. And let's take this ride and enjoy the journey together onto capital and clarity.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, thanks so much for joining tonight. To all the audience, we'll be back next week. And like Mike said, if there's any questions in between, feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact information is posted on the live stream on the YouTube channel. Please, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, that is kind of my main source. So I know we go across different platforms, but take a moment, go to the Naples Commission on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Mike, where would you like people to subscribe and
Right.
follow you at?
The same as well. On my YouTube, you'll find me at Coach Mike or Coach Mike Dulcio or Coach Mike 7. I'll put it up. And also, you'll find me on Facebook as well under Mike Dulcio, the EQ architect. And yeah, you'll be able to find my information. I ain't hard to find. So cool.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks again, Mike. We're signing off. We have an awesome show planned for next week. We'll go more into the second level of emotional architecture and the second level of financial structure and systems. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.